Welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish audio drama review. Today we'll be continuing my look at the 4th Doctor 2019 series adventures, as I'm going to be taking a look at the Syndicate Masterplan Volume 2. Now of course previously in my Big Finish review series I have already reviewed the Syndicate Masterplan Volume 1, a box set that does of course contain 4 adventures, including the introduction of the brand new companion being Anne Kelso, as played by Jane Slavin. So basically before I even get into this release, I'm basically going to say go and check out that review in case you haven't already, because if you haven't, you've basically missed out on the foundations of this series, all of the events that have happened so far, the introduction of that new companion, and it is basically the foundation of everything that I'm going to say in this review. It is a continuation. It's just like joining a book halfway through. It makes absolutely no sense. So go and check that out, then come back to this review, and then you are all up to date. Now all of that is out of the way, let's join the 4th Doctor and Anne Kelso once again in another box set of Big Finish adventures. Now once again we in fact have a little bit of a different layout this time round. We have the continuation of episode 4 from the previous box set with the finale to that story, then we have a one-off episode, and then the whole of the Syndicate Masterplan in fact wraps up with a 2-part story as written by John Dorney. Now of course, as per usual, in the description below I will leave the link to go and buy this release from the Big Finish website. It is currently out now. It is at the pre-order price of £25 for the physical CD and £20 for the download, and it will remain at this pre-order price up until the end of the 31st of March 2019. So basically, if you like what you hear in this review, I certainly recommend checking out this product on the Big Finish website, where there is also all the casting information and story details, and there is also a trailer that is available via the Big Finish YouTube channel, as well as the official Doctor Who YouTube channel. Now unusually for a Big Finish review, I'm not going to start this video by taking a look at the characters, because of course in the previous review I've already talked about the 4th Doctor as played by Tom Baker and Anne Kelso as played by Jane Slavin, so once again check out that review for my basic ideas of the characters so far. I will no doubt mention them throughout this review and the different developments of their characters, especially in the series finale of this box set. So as I was saying earlier, this box set is once again a 4-disc set featuring technically 4 adventures, first of which is Time's Assassin, as written by Guy Adams, the same person that wrote episode 4. Then we move on to episode 6 of the 8th season of 4th Doctor Adventures. It is Fever Island, as written by Jonathan Barnes, and is a standalone story. And then you have episode 7 and episode 8 of the Syndicate Masterplan, both of which are written by John Dorney and both have exactly the same title, being The Perfect Prisoners. So taking a look at the first episode of this box set, we of course have Time's Assassin, as written by Guy Adams, and is the continuation of episode 4 from the previous box set, being The False Guardian. Now this story has a very peculiar sort of theme, because we have the return to Kemble, which was of course previously seen in the Daleks Masterplan. We have a facility that has been created as almost a hospital or counselling area for people throughout the universe that have suffered from mental health, such as people like captains of armies that have actually suffered during wars, and they basically go to this counselling area for hospitality. However, it turns out there is a darker thing lurking underneath. Of course, in the previous story we did have a character that's played by John Shrapnel, who is believing he's Mavic Chen, who is the guy with the rather cool moustache as seen in the Daleks Masterplan. Of course he isn't that character, he is somebody who believes he is that person, and in this story we see the 4th Doctor actually being a little bit more with that character. We get to see him developed a little bit further, and we actually get to see him help the Doctor and his companion. And we, of course, in the previous story we did have a few references to a character called the Director, and we did get a little bit of a reveal in the previous story of who that character is. And if you want to have a spoiler-free review, don't watch this video basically, but there is a character from the Daleks Masterplan that does return, and that character is Zef On, who is a character that I previously have not encountered before, and he is portrayed by John Culshaw in this story, and he is absolutely marvellous as the character. He is so funny and so brilliant at the same time, because for those of you that are unaware, which was basically me before listening to this adventure, Zef On is also a race of people that basically name absolutely everything that is brilliant Zef On. So in the previous story, being the Daleks' master plan, you had a character called Zef On. Then we have in this story his son, his relation, who is also called Zef On, and he is a part of the council of Zef On Zef On. And he constantly says Zef On all the time, and their gods are Zef On, in case you don't get the gist. And it is incredibly funny. I think that John Culshaw does a very good job throughout this story of portraying basically this maniac nutter, because that's what he is. He's this character that is so over the top and theatrical, but it has this brilliant enjoyment in this story that really nicely sends this episode over the top, literally, and it is a great way to actually conclude the story, The False Guardian, in the previous box set. And it is also a nice way to open up the Daleks' master plan theme, because he is one of the delegates from the Daleks' master plan. Considering we have the return to Kemble and those constant themes to that story from the 60s all the way throughout, it is nice to have another one of the delegates in there, in a story that's kind of a little bit separate from the series finale. Would have had a bit more development. I think that the ending of the story was lovely. I did like the actual episode itself and the whole premise behind it, but I think it would have been nice to maybe go into the more darker experimental side a bit more. Maybe have a few more sort of wacky experiments that have gone completely wrong and see how that has backfired, as opposed to just kind of hearing about them. In this story we also get to see Anne Kelso being separated from the Doctor, seeing her actually fend for herself, which is quite nice, which we didn't particularly see too much of that within the first volume. However, we do a little bit more in this box set, because we have her actually being a little bit more of a strong female. In the previous box sets we did have some really great moments with her, of her being strong and also taking each scene within her stride, but it is nice to have some episodes with Jane actually having scenes by herself and not almost being in the Doctor's shadow, simply because Jane Slavin can handle the situation absolutely excellently. If she is in a scene by herself without Tom Baker being present, she can control that scene, she can keep it going at a very nice pace, and all of the attention is around her. She's a very intriguing character, and so far this season I have really enjoyed Anne Kelso as a person, and I couldn't wait to see how she actually developed throughout the rest of this box set. Of course, in the previous episode I did also have compliments about the characters of the Varga plants, which were seen in the previous story in a rather horrific sort of transformation. We see more of that in this story, where we see some experiments that have kind of gone wrong and they're kind of lurking in the shadows, which is really nice, and basically we see this perfect evil plan being turned to chaos pretty much, which is lovely. Once again, a very hectic story. Great way to actually start off this box set. The next episode of the box set is Fever Island, as written by Jonathan Barnes. Now this episode is in fact a standalone story, and I think it is one of the main reasons why I have settled into this series incredibly well, because in the Series 8 Volume 1 box set we had the Planet of the Drashigs as well as the Enchantress of Numbers, two stories that are completely separate, not linked to the narrative. This story is one of them. In fact, it is the only episode on the second half of Series 8 that is completely by itself. And by separating that big massive plot arc, it basically gives a breath of fresh air. It's a nice new adventure, a nice new change in location, and also a good distraction from the actual plot itself, because normally something that you can see from episodes such as Dark Eyes or Doom Coalition, where you are completely self-indulgent within that plot arc, it does get incredibly complex, and essentially when you start a box set you need to also listen to 4 or 8 hours even worth of context beforehand in order to catch yourself up. So it is nice to have a story that is stepping away from that, and Fever Island is a lovely little 1-hour tale, once again a 1-hour story much like the rest of this box set. Jonathan Barnes has basically created Doctor Who does a 1970s bizarre James Bond story that is almost a dreamscape at the same time. You're introduced to a character called Jason Vane, and he works for Her Majesty's Secret Service, and he may as well be called 008 or something like that, because he is basically a James Bond caricature. However, it turns out that once again, not everything is like what it seems to be, and Jason Vane is portrayed by Gethin Anthony, and he does such a great job throughout the story. You really get used to both different different personas of his character, but leaving quite a lot of mystery at the same time, and you do realise almost from the get-go that you have very much a stereotype agent that is being used. It starts very much like a narration piece, like he is writing in a journal. He has this amazing life, he's got loads of ladies coming to his door all the time, very much like how James Bond does have. He goes on all of these missions, he has an elderly sort of female character, almost like M from James Bond, actually kind of putting him on missions, as of course played by Dame Judi Dench in the James Bonds, in the recent ones at least, and it is very much harking back to James Bond films of the 1970s age, and even in present day James Bond, to be honest. And we of course have the Fourth Doctor and Jane Slavin, or at least Anne Kelso, coming into the situation, and we are introduced to this island called Fever Island that is off the coast of Scotland, and you have this whole idea of dreams. K9 is behaving incredibly unusually, he is quoting Shakespeare, he is trying to have human emotions, and he is trying to understand human emotions, and everything is not what you get to see in classic series Doctor Who. It's very much one of those modern interpretations of a classic series story, and I really love the idea of dreams. It is something that personally interests me. Basically created an episode that is really nicely self-contained within 1 hour. It is great to just sit back and listen to, and my favourite moment of this story is at the very end when everything is resolved and Jason Vane basically goes back to his own life, and his life that is certainly a lot different from the agent life that we got to see in the early half of this story. You have a really lovely speech that comes from the Fourth Doctor, and it's the final scene of the actual episode itself, and it really sent shivers down my spine, but not in like a scary tension way. It was kind of one of those moments where you think, this is why I listen to Big Finish, this is why I enjoy those adventures, because this episode has only been 1 hour long, yet I've engaged with the adventure, engaged with the characters, it's set up a really lovely atmosphere, and then it has a really lovely message behind it as well about relationships and emotions, and it's just very intriguing. I do recommend this one. It's a very nice listen, even though it's not related to the whole plot arc of this box set, because Tom Baker also plays somebody who isn't the Fourth Doctor in this episode as well, which is lovely. Tom Baker does a really good job utilising his skills as an actor incredibly well, and Jane Slavin gets to play the companion once again by the Doctor's side, having a lovely relationship with K9, and I'm already getting used to this TARDIS team. It is lovely, and I couldn't wait to see more adventures in this era, and it is just a shame that we are now on to the series finale being The Perfect Prisoners, episodes 1 and episodes 2, as written by John Dorney. I think I referred to in the previous review that The False Guardian was very much the start of the sequel to the Daleks Masterplan, and I kind of take that quote back, because at that time in the review I hadn't got to this point in the box set. If that was the sequel to the Daleks Masterplan, this is very much the sort of third instalment of the Daleks Masterplan. If anything, that episode was just almost setting up what is about to happen within the series finale, and these two parts, The Perfect Prisoner is very much the sequel to the Daleks Masterplan. You have a lot of the themes of the Daleks Masterplan returning, you have the delegates coming back, however not quite how you would expect, you have their relations coming back, and you have a lovely amount of fan service, but also at the same time contributing a new aspect to those characters. In the previous review of the Syndicate Masterplan Volume 1, I did mention that I felt a little bit like I was lacking context and knowledge about the Daleks Masterplan as an actual story, and once again in this episode to start with, I did feel like I was lacking a little bit of knowledge. There was a few characters referenced here and there, and basically what I had to do was go into Wikipedia and get up the cast list for the Daleks Masterplan and all of the characters, because I'm not aware of the different delegates' names and basically where they have came from the different planets and things like that. So I needed to get that up, and then whilst I was listening to the story I was able to pinpoint with the help of Google Images what character was what voice almost. So it is a little bit confusing to start with, and if you are a fan of the Daleks Masterplan, or if you have watched the story or watched one of the reconstructions or listened to the audio version, the BBC soundtrack, then no doubt you will find this story fine, but I've not listened to that episode, therefore I'm almost lacking that original instalment, but I did find that after I was introduced to those characters I did find it a fun listen, because I knew who everybody was, was. We had some brilliant characters actually. I'm going to actually take a look at my notes because we have some very unusual characters in this episode that are very alien looking. We have Malfa, who I've quoted as the spotty man. Then we have Trantis, who is the guy that has these sort of little snake things coming from his face. That there is a fun thing in the TARDIS Masterplan. Apparently in some stories he has the little things and in some he doesn't. That was of course a production issue in the filming of that episode. John Dorney basically provides an explanation for that, which is really nice. But yeah, he's in this story. Then we have Centrial, or however you pronounce his name, which is the giant chest piece, which I was really intrigued by him. He's basically a massive War Machine style character. He doesn't really do too much as a character, but he just looks really damn cool, so I liked him. And then we have Salation in there as well, who takes more prominence in the second part of The Perfect Prisoner, and they're basically, or she I suppose, because she's voiced by a woman, is basically a gaseous form, so it doesn't really have a gender, but it's nice to have that in this story as well. And we have a new delegate in the story as well, which I think kind of made sense, almost like a new controller. Of course we had Zef On in the previous story. Zef On, as played by John Culshaw. And then you also had Mavek Chen, or at least somebody pretending to be Mavek Chen. So you are almost covering all those different bases, but taking out the Daleks, which is quite nice. It's great to give the delegates a little bit more padding and more development. And this story, quite frankly, is incredibly challenging to talk about, which is because I don't want to reveal the actual plot. That is why I don't want to reveal it to you listeners, basically. But what I will say is Tom Baker does a very good job throughout this story as the Doctor. He is brilliantly challenged in this episode in a way that I've not seen a classic Doctor challenged much before, I don't think. And we also have Jane Slavin doing an absolutely excellent job as Anne Kelso. Honestly, I respect Jane Slavin so very much as the character, because I got used to Anne Kelso. I really loved the character, but also at the same time in some stories she once again became a little bit untrustworthy. You kind of felt like, how does she know that? She's very powerful for just a policewoman in the 1970s, and I think that she is all very mysterious. And what I do like is Big Finish have basically made a series split across 2 box sets that is self-contained. You only need to purchase this box set in order to understand everything, and it is a context that leads to this big, massive, grandiose scheme of a plot, and it is just a really fun, massive space adventure that is wild. It challenges the Doctor, you get a great companion. John Leeson as K9 is absolutely flawless. I was actually wondering whilst listening to this box set, because Chameleon, I've been listening to him recently in the Big Finish main range, and Chameleon and K9 are both android characters. They are both robots. What made Chameleon so essentially ineffective within the actual series, it was down to the actual costume itself, of course, because it wasn't one, it was an android, it was an actual robot. What made that so disliked, making the Big Finish actually not take up the character for so many years, only up until this year, we're actually seeing adventures with Chameleon and the 5th Doctor. And what made K9 such a big Doctor Who icon as a companion for the 4th Doctor, that then went on to have his Phil spin-off, K9 and Company, then of course later Sarah Jane Adventures, and then we also have the other version of K9, which I'm not going to mention, because the least said about that, the better. But basically K9 is this icon when it comes to Doctor Who, and I think that it is solely down to John Leeson. I think he does such a great job of the character. He understands him inside out, and for a logical robot, he can also be really sarcastic and really funny, simply because of his logic and the way that he is as a character. And his bond with the Doctor is so warm and enjoyable, and then you've got his new mistress in there as well, being Anne Kelso, and their TARDIS team relationship is something that I instantly clicked with, because all of them have something to contribute to each individual story. Some episodes see K9 having more of a prominent role, and some episodes see Anne Kelso having a more than prominent role, and then you have the Doctor basically just being prominent throughout, because prominent is basically Tom Baker's middle name. He cannot be in a room and not essentially be the centre of attention, because his personality is just so wild and erratic and brilliant. And I think that this TARDIS team has done things for me over 8 one-hour episodes that the Series 11 TARDIS team failed to do. They didn't jump out to me as characters characters because they didn't have that individual personality and something to contribute to each story. In the previous review, I didn't really give too much credit to the actual behind the scenes and technical details. I would just like to state as well that this whole box set has been directed by Nicholas Briggs, and very well, may I add. I think that this box set is very cinematic in its feel. It is brilliant. It's that mix between classic series Doctor Who, but still plummeting it into the 21st century with those fast and pacey adventures. And I think a new listener could very much enjoy this box set without having much context of previous Big Finish audio adventures, or really being used to the audio drama format. So if you are wanting somewhere to start with one of the most iconic Doctor Who incarnations of the Doctor, then this is certainly a box set for you, and that is something that I did refer to in the previous review as well. Very good for new listeners. Of course, the producer is David Richardson, as with many releases, and it is clear that his relationship with the writers and script editors and everybody else who works essentially on these productions is a very tight family unit. You can tell that all of them bounce ideas off each other very well. All of those thought processes, it is clear that the production team are very tight, and it shows in the final product that we actually get to listen to. The script editor is Guy Adams. I think you can tell kind of that he has a way of telling his stories, especially within the first half of this box set, and I suppose episodes 4 and episodes 5, where each episode is that pacey style, as I previously mentioned, and of course as per usual, executive producers Nicholas Briggs and Jason Haigh-Ellery, and the general sound design was done by Jamie Robertson, who does also the Jagon Lightfoot theme, and I knew there was something amazing and talented relating to the sound design in this box set, and then when I looked at the credits I understood completely why, because Jamie Robertson is a brilliant designer when it comes to sound. His music from each story was really nice and unique, very much of that setting. You had the historical, you had the mysterious, and you had the sci-fi in there as well. So yeah, I think that this box set and the Syndicate Masterplan as a whole definitely goes to lots of different areas, and it is a very lovely era of the show that sits between the Invasion of Time and the Ribos operation, and that is solely down, I think, to Jane Slavin and Tom Baker. As I mentioned in the previous review, their relationship, both in recording and off recording, being just them as general human beings, is clear that they respect each other very, very much, and that is reflected in the way that the stories are told. And Kelso made this season unique and made this season stand out, and is therefore the reason why these are my favourite 4th Doctor adventures that I've listened to so far, because other than the Louise Jameson adventures and the Lalla Ward adventures, there is just something about these ones in Series 8 that have had the edge to them and have been incredibly intriguing, and that is down to Anne Kelso, and especially the series finale of The Perfect Prisoner certainly solidified that for me, because it was probably Jane Slavin's most standout moments of the season, so it ended off on a high, and yeah, I liked it. I liked it a lot. Fever Island is lovely. For me, I really liked it. However, I imagine that it is an episode that no doubt a few people may not like as much. I think that people may consider it the weak one of the box set, but I like it simply because of its individuality and how it actually contributes to this box set in a way that isn't related to the actual plot arc itself. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this review of the Syndicate Masterplan Volume 2, and I hope you have enjoyed the previous 2 videos where I've managed to reflect on over 8 of the Tom Baker 4th Doctor adventures. Will I be tuning into more 4th Doctor audios in the future after this box set? Maybe. I feel like I'm in a bit of a Tom Baker mood, considering that previously I've not really listened to too many of his outings on Big Finish as the Doctor. Of course, later on in 2019, I do believe in fact next month, we have the comic adaptations of 2 adventures, which look very intriguing, and it'll be interesting to see how Tom Baker is a different version of the 4th Doctor in that box set. But other than that, that is it, I do believe, for Tom Baker up until Big Finish's 20th anniversary being the Legacy of Time. So yeah, that will be incredibly exciting when that is released. So if you have any questions about the Syndicate Masterplan, either Volume 1 or Volume 2, then please do feel free to leave them in the description below. And if you went against my recommendations at the very start of this review and didn't check out my review of the Volume 1 of the Syndicate Masterplan, then go and check out that video as well in order to get further details about Jane Slavin as Anne Kelso and Tom Baker as the 4th Doctor, and almost the general premise as to how this series actually started. So yeah, thank you for watching this review, and I guess I'll see you all in more Doctor Who content over the coming weeks, and stay tuned for lots more Big Finish over the next few months. Thanks for watching, I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.